Is it right to say that 2020 is going out with a bang in the world of anime? An unprecedented new contender for the next big thing has risen in this final stretch, and Attack on Titan's final season hasn't even aired yet. Will we get a Demon Slayer this season? Not likely. But fret not. To prove my point, let me introduce to you 10 of the great non-sequels that this season has to offer. Because even if you take out your sequels, this season has turned out to be more or less even stronger than the previous one. So, tell me what you like. Wholesome romance, high-octane action, comedies that can and will most likely turn into a feels trip at the end, remakes that aren't exactly remakes. Fall 2020's got it all for you. For our first entry, we'll go with Kimi-sen. And no, I'm not going to say that whole title out. Anyway, is it just me, or is Romeo and Juliet officially the Japanese people's favorite classic literature reference? It's got to be either that or Alice in Wonderland, right? Well, Kimi-sen, which I'll just be calling Our Last Crusade, is this season's Romeo and Juliet retake. Despite it looking like Kirito just went looking for a new job after Alicization ended, Our Last Crusade takes things in a different direction that's quite familiar for fantasy light novel anime fans, yet a bit different from what we've been accustomed to. First of all, no, it's not an isekai for once. And no, it's not a show starring an author self-insert who goes from weak need to the strongest harem king in the universe. Our Last Crusade talks about the good old conflict between the worlds of science and magic, as well as two of the strongest fighters of each faction falling in love with each other, shared by their common goal of wanting to end the pointless war the factions have gotten themselves into. Having watched it, I'd say that it's got a lot of good moments and great chemistry between not just our main couple, but also other allies within their nations. Probably not going to be something people remember this season for, but for a seasonal, I really enjoyed it. I talked about this show a lot in the pre-season introductions, and as early as then, I already prepared myself for an emotional roller coaster. But at the time of this writing, we still haven't got to the tears part of the Junmaida bingo yet. I mean, well, we got some headway into the bingo yet with baseball among others. For me, where The Day I Became a God really shines is in the character interactions. I just find myself thoroughly entertained and laughing with how the characters act around each other. It also helps that our supposed god, who would bring about the end of the world in a month, acts like Rista, Aqua, or all those butt monkey goddesses who react in over-the-top ways. Despite that, the series doesn't completely fall off the rails in terms of the plot. I'm not sure if I can call the end of the series correctly or not, but I'm quite positive that the series tone will soon flip and will be in for a bittersweet finish of sorts. Now, before we resume with the show, I'd like to inform you that this video is sponsored by Shining Beyond, developed by the Singaporean studio 12 Braves. Shining Beyond is an idle-action hybrid game that should sate all gamers' needs for anime-esque action on the go. Immerse yourself in its world with its rogue-like battle design supported by music from the best of the best, including Hitoshi Sakamoto, music producer of Final Fantasy XII. What makes Shining Beyond so special? Well, check this out. Shining Beyond is one of the friendliest gacha games ever, with a pull rate of 5% for SSRs, the rarest and most powerful units at your disposal, and the ability to actually craft them. It's by far one of the easiest games to get a maxed out party in. Having your dream team full of your dream waifus or the strongest possible lineup has never been so easy before. When you're all set to go, it's time to start taking down enemies. You can choose to do battle on your own, but if you're one of the social types, Shining Beyond also has a real-time co-op feature, so you can have the chance to kick ass with your friends. What's more awesome than slaying the monsters with friends? Now, how does that sound for a mobile game? Let's help each other out and support my channel by downloading Shining Beyond. And just for you, I'll be providing a special download code for the game to give you some exclusive rewards. So hurry up and click the download button below, so that by the time you finish this video, Shining Beyond will be ready for you to launch on your mobile phones. Wow, they actually pulled it off, and I don't mean that in a good way. Yeah, I can understand your pain when you enter the season all excited for one of the best and most popular webtoons out there, only to see an adaptation that, continues from the OVA. Yep, I'm confused as well. I never thought they'd do it, and now I'm sure glad to have talked about the start of the series in my pre-season video, because you're not getting any of those background plot lines in this adaptation. Rest easy. I may have sounded a bit harsh with Nobilis, but my main grievances just lay in how this adaptation is structured. As for everything else, like the art, the sound, the overall atmosphere, I think that it's a pretty decent series. Being a fan of power fantasy and overpowered characters, I still find it a joy to watch Rai and how he deals with the world around him. The supporting cast is no slouch either. I look forward to the protagonist's eventual confrontation with Union. The clash with the shady organization will be a joy to see and could make the whole journey worth it. Akudama Drive makes it to the list as our next entry. Coming into the season, I felt that Akudama Drive had potential. It seemed to be the dark, edgy hit of the season, and it gave me some vibes similar to Blood Blockade Battlefront to Bacano. What I got is more than what I asked for, especially given the last few episodes. Akudama Drive starts off as your edgy story about gangs and a divided country. You know the drill for these titles. Some fight against the system themes going on, probably spray it with some grim, dark, pseudo-philosophical things and all, but Akudama Drive completely blew me away given my previous expectations. I fully expected it to be another 7 out of 10 show, but it just keeps me watching with how it successfully masters the art of using tension and having a cast that's more than the sum of its parts. It's edgy, eye-catching, and exciting. Those are some words that I can use to describe Akudama Drive. The surprisingly good story is just the icing on top of what I could pen down as the underrated gem of the season. Who knew that a remake would look so good over a decade down the line? Actually, that statement is only half true for Higurashi 2020. Will it be a remake? Will it be a sequel? Those were all questions asked when it was first announced, and we ended up getting, well, a little bit of both. So what they did was remake the arcs but deviate from the original roots endings, and it's been met with a mixed reception to say the least. Not to say that Higurashi has lost its magic, but I think that in terms of being a premiere horror anime, especially something that can scar the uninitiated use of the 2020s, it's still got it. It just looks different. Must be the art, it must be the overall atmosphere being too refined and bright for a horror work. Still, I think that this tale of a boy settling into a cursed village with girls who aren't who they seem at first hand still stood the test of time. The story itself is still as engaging after all of these years. Will it live up to the status of its predecessor? Well, it's too early to tell at the moment, but I'm keeping my hopes up for this one.
さっき婚姻届を出したってことは僕はあの子と結婚したってことだよな
Is Donikawa the best rom-com of the year? I mean, it's got a serious case for it, honestly speaking. I think that it's one of the shows that gets all the right things done and avoids pushing trigger buttons for a lot of anime fans. Rent-A-Girlfriend, I'm looking at you. That's not to say that the series is playing it too safe. In fact, its premise is quite unique in a sense that you've got the characters married from the get-go, thus moving past the romantic chase part, which the traditional rom-com spend about 90% of their airtime on. It's very wholesome and has a unique thing going for it in its premise, and while there's not much of a plot to it, there's really no need to have one. You watch this anime mostly for the comedic and lovey-dovey moments from our main couple, and it's got those in spades to keep you entertained and charmed to keep watching. Who needs the drama of a runaway tsundere girl, simping escapades, or some top-class high school bullying when you can just drown in the wholesomeness of Tsukasa and Nasa's relationship? Overall, a recommended watch. And if the art looks familiar, it's because the guy behind this is the same one behind Hayate the Combat Butler.
ここは私に任せてください。マジックナンバー75、スカタリングクラウン。
Our next focus anime is the movie Burn the Witch. Seeing Daite Kubo's name in another anime makes me happy. I credit Bleach to be one of my favorites when I was starting out on one of the most influential shows on a personal level, and now I get to see Kubo's work again in the form of the anime movie Burn the Witch. Going from the feudal Japanese aesthetic that we've become used to, we get taken to the modern city of London, with dragons and witches. In a movie format. Are we sure we're not watching an anime version of Fantastic Beasts with buddy cop protagonists? Personally, I think that Burn the Witch needs some serious reconsideration when it comes to the pacing. When people said that they felt that they're watching the 5th episode of a one-course show, they're not wrong. The narrative has this tendency to just skip all over the place. However, it's not all doom and gloom. I personally found the movie very entertaining in terms of the banter between our main characters and Balgo. I found myself captivated in its self-contained story and the character arc of the focus characters, and the climactic battle had me getting all hyped. With Bleach set to make its glorious comeback, Burn the Witch is a good way to sate your cravings for the Bleach universe. Bleach comparisons aside, I found Burn the Witch to be a good mini-series. I feel that with a few more episodes to help establish the world or set up a bigger overarching plot, it's something that I'll gladly follow on a weekly basis. Coming up next is Talentless Nana. Humanity is once again under attack by monsters known as enemies of humanity. Humanity's only hope lies in the hands of the talented, humans with superpowers. In order to continue the fight to save humanity, schools have been created in order to train these superhumans and hone their abilities. Right, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this My Hero Academia with aliens or something? Anyway, our hero Nanao is your standard withdrawn protagonist. Having no friend is no handicap for anime characters, especially if you can get yourself a cute pink girl as your special other. With her telepathic abilities, Nana forms a bond with Nanao, and after finally unleashing his talent in a scuffle, nothing can stand in the way of Nanao. Oops. Turns out Nana's a talentless all along. No special powers, just assassin skills and insane powers of observation. And she's been sent as a mole to kill the superhero wannabes, by the way. However, will every student be just as easy to fool as Nanao? I just find it ironic that the show came out right around the time the Among Us craze is still going strong. What seemed to be a superhero shonen fare turns out to be quite the interesting psychological thriller that shouldn't be judged by its cover. Pink kinda sus, hmm?
犯罪教モリアーティ教授の物語
Second place for today's list is Moriarty the Patriot. When I said something about Japan borrowing from Western literature, I've forgotten about the third contender, Sherlock Holmes. Japan just loves Sherlock Holmes as much as Alice in Wonderland and Romeo and Juliet, it seems. However, while we get a slew of shows like Gabukicho Sherlock, we rarely see things from the perspective of the villain. Moriarty the Patriot is here to fix that. They say that the best villains are those with the best intentions, and you just can't help but feel sympathetic to the most popular Holmes' villains' causes here. Moriarty the Patriot didn't get too much hype in the pre-season previews, but I think that it's one that struck the hardest when it comes to reality. It's like looking at society with a different set of lenses. Yes, Moriarty has a flawed sense of justice, but in a way, isn't it still a sense of justice? In real life, I might not exactly like people like Moriarty, but with the class divide the way it's presented here, can we blame them? This is overall just a brilliant show. I didn't even talk about the cinematography and the soundtrack, which, by the way, is amazing. If you're going to pick a show to watch this season and want to pick something that's so under the radar in comparison to the big hits, then pick this one.
術式判定
As for why so many shows are under the radar, the answer is simple and is the top show on this list, Jujutsu Kaisen. Don't you love it when you can predict the most popular anime of a season a mile away? For the record, when I was doing my pre-season videos, I successfully called Jujutsu Kaisen to be one of the most hyped show for this season. The internet exploded with episode 7 thanks to Gojo. Jujutsu Kaisen seems to have the whole anime community firmly in its grasp, one that it won't let go of anytime soon. An ironic word choice, considering our protagonist Itadori has powers coming from those Deidara hands. While I don't think that Jujutsu Kaisen has quite reached the popularity that Demon Slayer had last year, it's probably one of the closest we'll get this year in terms of shonen, and how can it not be? As a battle shonen, the series has it all. Hype-filled fights, engaging characters, and a plethora of interesting powers that get pit against each other. It was a promising series in manga form, and it should come as no surprise that it ended up this way in anime form. It should also not be a surprise that it's our #1 new anime on the list. How about that then? What's your favorite new anime this season? What do you think needs more love and why? Don't let those thoughts just be thoughts and speak out in the comments section. While you're at it, please hit that thumbs up and ask your friends to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Don't forget to check out our sponsored game Shining Beyond. The link's in the description. With that, we end this video and I'll see you next time.